Hi guys. What I'm going to do today is basically break any YouTube common sense suggestion and teach you basic stuff about composition and do it by playing the piano. And I'm not a pianist, so that's going to suck too. But I want to show you kind of my perspective of, in a sense, how music works and how I think about it when improvising. And I think you'll be able to do it too. And I want to show you the common sense behind music or how I think about it. And give you simple exercises that you can do to start creating melody and harmony together. So let me say the very basic thing first. One way I think about songwriting or composition and even about improvising, I think of it like a left hand of the piano defines a space. Right hand defines the melody and the rhythm. And let's talk about how that space works, because it's kind of interesting. And a great place to start is look at this. This chart, let me remove the cursor because that'll be annoying. There we go. Okay. So when you look at this chart, it tells you the fraction ratios of the frequencies between the first note, C, okay, if your first note is C. And what it says is that all the other notes that you play above that C are kind of fraction vibrations of that string. So what you want to do is imagine a string. Right now it's vibrating at the frequency of C. I don't remember what the frequency is, but I remember, as everyone, that A is 440. So the string is bouncing up and down really quickly, many times per second. And if you play the C an octave above it, then the rope is bouncing twice as fast. So that's your first harmonic. It's called the octave. And here's the interesting thing, that when the string vibrates, essentially when your eardrum is being pushed or sensitive to pressure changes, what's really happening is the rope doesn't only vibrate at that basic frequency, it breaks up because ropes can't just move in the middle and move. They start creating all these curves inside them, and all of these curves like make music. And all these sub vibrations, which we call overtones, are kind of like smaller, more subtle movements of that same rope. And they give us the harmonic depth we love so much because you can play all these vibrations together. Okay? And what you can see here, that every time I play a note, it's a different fraction. For example, C is wow, shocking, of course, sarcasm from a GPT Monday. If I play D, that means the D is vibrating at a ratio 1 times 9/8, meaning the same frequency plus an eighth. E is adding a fourth to the vibration. F is adding a third to the vibration of the C. G is adding a half. A is adding 2/3. And B is adding 15/8. What? That's 7/8. Okay? And what I think is going on is your brain really experiences the lower fractions, like another half, like G, as very simple and consonant, and really weird vibrations like 7/8 as really dissonant. Okay, so imagine your brain is like this machine that wants to explain reality as simple as possible and enjoys hearing a C and G because they're just one and another half above it. Okay? And here's a funny and important thing that your brain loves to do. If I'll give my brain C and F, you would think you'll be experiencing it as 1, and the F, of course, is the for another extra third. But what I think your brain is doing, it's saying, I don't care that you played C here and F here. I'm going to hallucinate a lower octave F, this one, and I'm going to imagine it to be just 1.5. What this means is that your brain doesn't care that much which note came first or which octave it was on. It's going to look for the easiest fraction it can find to hear that note. That's why when you play, I think, C and F, your brain hears a nice little stable F chord, and it's not hearing a C with that fourth note above it. Okay? So this is important because what this says is that different notes, when you play melodically, if I play a melody in C and I stop on that B, your brain is saying, fuck, that's like 7/8. That sounds like a very dissonant note. If I stand on G, we feel relaxed. And when we go to C, we feel resolved. So in terms of that harmonic melodic space, that means that every time I play a melody, especially the note I will rest on, will define if I feel resolved or in tension. High fraction tension, low fraction resolution. Like E is a resolution. Okay, so that's why essentially this works in the melodic space. Now I want you to notice a couple of interesting things about that melodic space. Essentially, this is the most stable thing, C, and when you want to create the most stable structure in the harmonic universe, you're going to create a note with an octave plus a half, which is the G, and you're not going to use F, which seems like the third, because that's going to make your chord an F chord, which is you're going to use C, which is the simplest overtone. That does not, I would say, redefine the chord. And that's the most stable structure in the universe. We all love triads. Right? That's total harmony, triads. And what we're trying to do is add harmonic depth to that. This is my home. And here's another cool and funny thing about the brain. Just like if you find a bird and start to taking care of it, it's going to think its mama. There's something about the first chord we play, which we always mark as our home. So when we journey music, we really want to return to that harmonic space we call home. It's as if we always want to return home. But music is a story. Story has narrative, meaning story wants to move, evolve, and perhaps just like the Odyssey, we essentially want to journey from home, go through things, and return from home. And as the Greeks would say, and see it for the very first time. So you can think about the harmonic space as the curvature of your story. It's going to take you places. I'm going to play the left hand. And bring you back home. So the progression, in a more modern metaphor, are like these evil reality TV script producers, which say, we'll have our plot, we'll welcome everybody aboard. Then we'll start warming things up. Create a huge climax, tension, and resolve it. That'll be the satisfying show. You start, you get a little tension going, full tension, and you collapse. So in terms of narrative, that gives you kind of, you can imagine two poles. One being, I'm home, I'm happy. Dominant, 5, I'm super, super tense. This is the most tense moment in a plot. And somewhere in the middle, half. In music, we call these, the tonic is 0 tension, the home stuff. Dominant, the maximal tension, the peak point of the plot, and somewhere in the middle, the subdominance. And why do these happen? It all comes from this. Look at this. This is C major. And you can see it has that major chord quality because I have a major third here and a minor third here. It's that what you used to call happy and sad, though these mappings have been criticized. And this gives you the most stable, this is your home, with the added overtones to add complexity and interest. And essentially, chords will have more or less tension according their composition. You take chords, you build them in thirds by skipping a note, and you can make each note in C major more complex. C becomes C major, D, because of minor third, major third becomes minor, E becomes minor, F becomes major, G becomes major, A becomes minor, and B, half diminished, becomes half diminished with a minor third and another minor third. And essentially, each of these notes or each of these chords is gonna have stuff that's gonna set the mode of where is it in your reality TV show. C, we're gonna call 0, tonic, because we're home, we're happy, we're stable. D is gonna be sort of halfway, because in terms of the C system, D, remember this weird fraction? D, the 9/8, and the F in this context, these are higher fractions. It's a more tense chord. E minor, typically, is kind of like a C major 7. It's again a minor function. So it's basically a tonic. So when I'm here on E minor, I'm still home. On F, I'm halfway through, subdominant, we call that half. G is full tension, it has that B, the worst note for C major, and A minor is kind of another variation on home with a common note C and E and A, and B is full tension. So let me recap. These are your plot lines. I'm home, half tension, home, half tension, home, G, tension, I apologize, home, full tension. Okay, let me repeat that. Tonic, 0, subdominant, half, E, tonic, 0, F, half, G, dominant, that's 1, A minor, 0, tonic, B, full dominant, and then home. So what you have now is a harmonic space which kind of sets you up to have tension in your melody. Here's an example. So if I'm going to play a song, I'm going to imagine the following curvature. Take a tonic chord. Welcome to the beginning of the story. Half, full tension, resolve to home, E minor, half, full tension, and the story is coherent. Why did that work? Here's what I did, and this is like your first compositional exercise. I think it's a fun exercise you can do. And I'm sort of educated, half educated, but I conduct a lot of experiments in music, and I do a lot of improvising with chords and melody. And you can really observe this directly and have your own experience with it. But here's what happened and what I used. Note that I have these 7 chords: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A, M, B half diminished. What I did is I moved by a constant diatonic interval. I started on C. It's called a fourth, which means counting 4, including where you started, C, D, E, F, and then I got F, F, G, A, B, then I got B, then I got E, then I got A, and then I got D, and then I got G, and then I got back to C. So if you keep moving up by 4 white notes on a keyboard, you'll get back home. And if you harmonize each of these chords, you'll get the following progression, which is kind of a God-given starter's kit in narrative, because it not only plays the diatonic chords of C major, it arranges them in an order that naturally contains narrative. And look, an interesting and important thing is happening, I think. You're seeing two phenomena. You're seeing something mathematically generated, which is a progression out of fourths, and you're seeing narrative form. Why is narrative form? Because I got this starting journey, 0 tension, and then quite naturally it moved to the chord that has half tension, and then moved to the full dominant chord, which is perfect for us, and resolved back to E minor. So I got that perfect triangle of 0, half, full, 1, and back to 0, a complete journey. And not only did it do that, it did that a second time, moving up a fourth to A minor, up a fourth to D minor, up a fourth to G, and back home. So essentially, I got 2 perfect plot episodes, 0, half, 1, 0. But they had these small variations in them, meaning the chords, it didn't just repeat the first progression. It created a natural variation by using substitutions. First part, C, uses the tonic. Second part uses the subtonic, A minor, the substitution. And here's where I can suggest your first experiment. Even if you're a bad piano player like me, you can definitely do this. All I'm doing is learning to play these triads and jumping up a fourth or down a fifth, doesn't matter, same chord. Play this progression. I'll play it with the bass for fun. Not so hard, right? E minor, A minor, D minor, G. Okay, and that gives you, let's imagine, let's call this the harmonic space, the progression space. This is where whoever is creating the story sees the meta arc of the story, seeing from above where there will be tension and when there will be release. Now look at the melody hands. If I'm making these melodies, and here's what the right hand is going to do. Notice that when you're playing a melody with the right hand, there's a lot of weight on the note that I end my phrases on. If I'm playing on the first chord, C, remember the most unstable notes are that F and C that represent tension. So when you're making up your melodies, remember B is going to sound like the most dissonant or the most tense note on your dominant. And what you want to do is have your phrases, in a sense, correlate or match what the harmonic space is doing. So when I'm here, I'm always thinking about resolving my melodic notes in ways that make sense to each chord. Now I want to bring up an interesting topic about that melody. So every note you're going to play with your right hand is going to be doing 2 things at the same time, which is going to create a lot of confusion. it's going to have a tonal context in the key of C major, right? Because in the key of C major, B, most tense plot in the melody. But it's also going to have a harmonic meaning within your momentary chord. For example, if I'm in C major, you're going to hear that note, what we call in jazz the 9, and it's gonna not only feel like an event in the melody in C major, it's gonna feel like some kind of tension in C. And this has some really weird and interesting effects because the chords, they don't really like having stuff a half a note above any of the chord tones. So if I play the C chord and play C sharp, ooh, it's gonna sound tense. Or if I play F because it's half a note above F, E, sorry. Or if I'm gonna play G sharp, half a step above G, all this is all gonna sound dissonant. But chords are funny because when you play a chord, if you play something, I'll play even C major 7 here, if you play something a whole step above any note, it's gonna sound kind of cool because it doesn't clash with the natural overtone series of that chord. So I can play the D or the F sharp because it's a whole step above E. I can play the A, even all of them together, right? Super tense. What this means is that in my progression space, there are all kinds of opportunities that come from where the chord is and not from the tonality. Where did that C sharp come from? Because on B, half diminished, I'm a whole step above the chord. So every time I have a chord, I have all these local opportunities that did not come from the tonality. They only came from the overtone series of the specific chord. That gives you license to add a bunch of very interesting notes. Here's a really simple example. I'm going to add F sharp on my E minor. Feel it? Okay, so essentially every chord extends the melodic space in a weird way. It's as if it's playing a tree of harmonics, and it's saying you can you have some extra harmonic opportunities that are not because you're in C major, but because the chord itself is gonna like stuff that's a whole step above chord tones. One final note about that, I'll explore it in other videos. The dominant is a super unhappy chord because B and C are the worst notes in the tonality of C major. They are the essence of the dominant plot, which resolves here. B and F want to resolve to C and E. So this chord is essentially G7 or B diminished, is essentially already as tense as it could possibly be. And for this reason, when this is so tense, we can add tensions that are even a half step above chord tones, like making that, see that G7 is even more desperately wanting to resolve itself. So I can add the A flat, which is the flat 9, or add the flat 13, and even the sharp 9. So it has all these opportunities. Okay, so what have I said so far? You have a plot, a reality TV show. The plot knows where the tension is, and your melody, especially the note you land on, is going to give you a sense of, is my song resolved or tense? And your first exercise can be just play this and play silly melodies with the white keys. Don't worry about anything. Okay? And then you get these very, very, very simple melodies. Now, if you want to move a bit further, the next thing you can try to do is try to add these notes that are specially available to each note. So for the C minor, for the C dominant. Okay, so you can kind of experiment with these notes. Now I want to get into one final topic for this baby steps compositional video. In music, in physics, I believe, another thing I really know nothing about, but there is a principle of least action, which essentially I think means, I'm sure, I hope I'll get corrected and educated on this, that even when a photon or anything travels in nature, it kind of samples all available paths for its journey and chooses the one with least amount of energy expenditure. It's seeking its rest state. And you can kind of imagine it that everything wants to be as lazy as possible, knowing all options. It's like the principle of least action. I think there's an interesting analogy in music because this space was the harmonic space. I just told you that your brain is lazy and it wants to think about this, for example, as 1.5 and not about 1 1/3. In the same way, melodic change is hard for the brain, right? That's kind of difficult for us to hear. It's a coherent melody. Steps are easy. So your brain doesn't like a lot of melodic change. It doesn't like huge intervals and leaps. And I've certainly made a career out of making unpleasant intervallic music on guitar, and I apologize for that. But what your brain likes is these small steps. We sometimes call them melodic. Right? Your brain likes these small steps. And that's where voice leading comes in. Voice leading means that if you're in the progression space, if you're on this C, and you're gonna go to the F chord, because chords have inversions, meaning you can play the same combination in many, many different arrangements, and you'll still get the same chord. Our brain doesn't care in terms of how much tension it has. Then what you're going to notice is if you try to find the closest F to your C, you're going to get this one, right? And if I'm going to look for the closest B, that's going to be this one, and E minor is going to be here. So after a harmonic, when you do what we call voice leading, we kind of get hints at what melody wants. So remember, harmony wants that change, that narrative. Melody wants to change as little as possible, and voice leading is the idea of the compromise or the solution to these two opposing problems, because melody is going to move your keys around a lot. Harmony will, and melody doesn't want a lot of change, and voice leading is the minimization solution to that problem. So now you get this. If I'm going to use major 7 chords, I'll get this pretty thing. What it is C major 7, but I'm going to use voice leading to connect my chords C major 7, F, B, E minor 7, A minor 7, G7. So now my harmony is more sophisticated because it has voice leading. Okay? And this informs how I write melodies. right? Mozart did this. Okay, if you listen to Mozart, the amazing, mhm, okay, something like that. I think it's the 21st Concerto in C major. You'll hear all these amazing, transparent, simple ideas that come from melody, or is so many beautiful, genius, transparent melodies that, in a sense, spell out the chords, and you can really see the voice leading. So this is my final exercise for today's super long um, video. You take your narrative, throw in voice leading or extension. And that's how songs come to life. Okay, and you can kind of start experimenting with this. So I really hope this helped you. I hope you got the key ideas, that notes are simply mathematical fractions. Your brain is seeking simplicity. Every chord has inherent tension, 0, half, and 1. Every time you play a chord, it has its own overtone series where you can extend the chords and you can improvise within a narrative. And that's how I start to write songs. I sincerely hope this helped you. Please share if you can. It's going to help me. And I would love to have conversations on this. I'm sure I made a ton of mistakes. But more than anything, I hope this helps you go and seek your own experiences within music, because there's no knowledge like first person direct experience knowledge. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.